He's looking directly at him, and what you're not supposed to do is, when those are red, he's supposed to address the court. You're not supposed to eyeball the defendant. And if I'm the defense lawyer at this point, I think I'm going like this and moving away slightly. Hi, this is Bruce Rivers, board certified criminal defense lawyer. Today we are going to court cam. We're going to watch the four biggest outbursts. And I love these things because this actually happens in real life, where somebody is not happy with either a judge, their lawyer, or something going on in the court. And you see some reactions by folks to what's going on. So let's take a look and see at the first one.
Now we head to Cleveland, Ohio, to the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court for the sentencing of convicted serial killer Michael Madison. Madison's been convicted on 3 counts of aggravated murder for the killing and mutilation of 3...
Every jurisdiction has a different category of homicide. And I love aggravated murder because aggravated murder, I don't love the murder itself, but the category of aggravated murder indicates some depravity.
Women in Ohio. As part of the hearing, Van Terry, the father of one of Madison's victims, steps up to the podium to make a victim impact statement. Mr. Terry's now just a few feet away from the man who...
Now, these victim impact statements are really, as a defense lawyer, suck the bag. You sit there and there's nothing you can do, and all they do is, talk about how this impacted them. And you feel bad for them, but there's absolutely nothing you can do from that standpoint. And the tension when these are read in the courtroom is absolutely palpable.
So brutally took the life of his daughter, Sherelda.
Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who's touched our families, taken my child.
He's looking directly at Madison.
Now, he's looking directly at him, and what you're not supposed to do is, when those are red, he's supposed to address the court. You're not supposed to eyeball the defendant. And if I'm the defense lawyer at this point, I think I'm going like this and moving away slightly. And if you look at that deputy, that's a pretty big guy that he's holding. But look behind him. You can see the defendant actually smiling. And where is the defense lawyer? I guess I'll go on the other side of the table. But the father of the victim is just overwrought, absolutely overwrought with anxiety and with grief and with rage and anger. You can't make it up. And look at the anguish on the father's face. It's just so sad.
Van Terry is released without charges. A short time later, County Judge Nancy McDonald hands down Madison's sentence. Michael Madison is sentenced to death and will now live on Ohio's death row. Next, we head to the S. James Foxman Justice Center in Daytona Beach, Florida.
All right, Miss Cook, come on out.
The woman being sworn in is 18-year-old Ky'Andrea Cook. Cook's in court today to receive a sentence for using a dating app to set up a robbery that ended with another teen being shot. The teen survived. Cook has accepted a plea deal that will drop...
Look at these charges. Carjacking, attempted carjacking with a deadly weapon, felony battery. These are not small charges, and they carry a very lengthy prison sentence.
Conspiracy charge, which carried a maximum penalty of life in prison, but counts of carjacking, attempted carjacking with a deadly weapon, and felony battery are still in play.
Anytime you have a felony exacerbated by violence, you know someone's getting a lot of prison time. so I can get out. Give me a second chance so I can go carjack again.
To finish school, and I can be my mama proud, because I want to be her first child to bring home high school.
The problem is that sometimes the conduct is so bad, there's really nothing you can say or argument that you can make that mitigates your conduct.
And I just want to make my mama proud. That's it.
Cook now prepares to hear her sentence as her loved ones look on.
Ms. Cook, you're before the court for sentencing. A couple of things going in your favor. One, you didn't hold the firearm during these episodes. The second is that the victim luckily survived. That being said, this was intentional. It was an orchestrated ambush, and you are a main part of that. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and adjudicate you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
20 years. And this looks like a fairly young gal. Whenever the judge starts out with, here are the pluses, and then goes on to the minuses, you know you're getting a long sentence.
Concurrent as to the first 2 counts.
The crying you hear is coming from Cook's mother. The sentence much more severe than they expected.
Charges. All fines and costs.
Look at the anguish on everybody's face. All for what? Probably a couple dollars. You know, whether or not a crime is worth it is something that doesn't go through their heads when they're making these choices.
It turns out that Cook and her mother's reactions were so intense because they believed the plea deal meant no prison time.
If that's the case, that they believe she was getting no prison time, that's a miscommunication by the lawyer. The lawyer's got to set expectations with the client. They've got to know that there's a serious risk of going to prison or what the reality is. You can't be Happy News Charlie and just give the client news that they think they want to hear. You have to give them a realistic expectation of what's going to happen in their case. And in some cases, I've had a client say to me, well, I hired a paid lawyer, hiring a paid lawyer doesn't change the facts of the case. We can be great tacticians, we can be great at what we do, but we can't change the facts.
Judge Foxman allows her to enter a new plea deal, citing miscommunication between Cook and the assistant public defender.
What did I just say? I've never seen this before. That's exactly what happened.
Result of that new deal, Cook's sentence is reduced to 11 years in prison.
Do you see that? You get a bad lawyer and who goes through the motions and doesn't do what he's supposed to do. That cost her 9 years, and she probably got a new lawyer, and they figured something out, and they renegotiated the deal. That saved her 9 years.
We now head to the Nesbitt Courthouse in Anchorage, Alaska, where this man,
If you want to arrest me and drag me off, that's the only way I'm leaving.
David Haig,
When you're being a dick, and you say, arrest me, guess what's going to happen?
the court looking for justice. But instead, the judge ordered a new hearing to be held at a later date, and he's not having it.
If this court didn't do right the first time, it sure can't now. That they had screwed me out of a plea deal, that the state had falsified evidence, and now they're lying about everything to cover it all up. And that's just the beginning of it. That's right.
The game pilot and tour.
I love this when guys will say, it's all a conspiracy, or the cop did this to the recording, or, they're all against me. I had one client say that I was in bed with the prosecutor and that we had drinks the night before, which couldn't have been anything further from the truth. People of all walks of life do this kind of stuff.
Is seeking to clear his name in a decades-old conviction, accusing him of killing wolves illegally while working with the state predator control program. He claims the state doctored maps to make it seem as if he'd gone rogue, and that state officials who were trying to save face when confronted with a public relations
Sometimes people don't realize that, I want to get my thing heard right now. There's procedure that you have to go through, and you can't just go when you want and have your matter be heard. And if it's not in the right time or circumstance, the judge is going to shut you down, and in this case, the guy gets arrested.
Mayor falsified the boundaries of the map to frame him.
The map! The map! They falsified this before trial, and there's a recording of the prosecutor and trooper talking about falsifying it before trial. Mr. They're going in and falsifying the map that they convicted me with by altering the lines on it to make it corruptly seem I was shooting wolves in my...
Prosecutors would not generally do that. I doubt that they did this in this case. They've got too much other stuff to deal with.
Area. That's felony tampering with evidence, and because a trooper, an Alaska State trooper, was doing it with a prosecutor, it's a conspiracy. The courtroom's closed. And they used it at trial knowing...
Now, he's been ordered by a deputy to leave the courtroom. The hearing's over, the courtroom is closed, and he doesn't listen.
That is another felony. And I'm putting my foot down because somebody has to...
You've got mail.
So, well, you're gonna have to... There's no more hearings here. All right. No.
Sorry, Mr. Hay. Sorry, so sorry that our court system is so corrupt that they would do this to you.
Haig is charged with disorderly conduct for violating an order to leave a courtroom. Haig's attempt to clear his name continues. We're at the Jefferson County District Court in Louisville, Kentucky, and Judge Sandra McLaughlin is hearing arguments as to whether or not the defendant, Ricky McAllister, should be held in contempt of court for a failure to comply to a court-ordered drug treatment.
I think that's where we are, and the court should deny the Commonwealth's motion to hold him in contempt. We don't have any evidence.
Okay, what's the Kane's position?
Judge, this defendant 8 times over has failed to comply. I don't know why he's failed to comply. He's failed to comply because he doesn't...
If you have a court order and you don't comply, there are sanctions for that. However, if the reason you didn't comply is beyond your control, they can't hold you accountable for that.
Do it. He's failed to comply because he doesn't want to pay for it. He's failed to comply because he's now...
If he can't pay for it, that's not a reason to find him in contempt.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But that's why the legislature has shifted the burden to the defendant to show cause. Now, that's what he was supposed to do on August 29th, and he willfully failed to appear in court. Now, do I have to prove why he willfully failed to appear in court? No, of course not, because he didn't.
We don't
and
know
that's
he
why
failed to
I'm
appear.
talking here.
I'm sorry.
I love it when people get animated like that in court, especially prosecutors. The more animated they get, the calmer I get. And the calmer I get, the more they hate it. And they get more animated.
And that's why the legislature has shifted the burden, and he can
What is your objection,
forward
Mr.
notice
Harbeck?
to the Attorney
Mr.
General,
Fleck is
like the
arguing
law
things that
says.
are not in evidence. Mr. Fleck is arguing things that he doesn't know. Mr. Fleck, watch
I'm
Mr.
arguing things I don't know. I've forgotten more than you will ever know, buddy boy.
Mr.
Buddy boy.
Fleck.
I object to that. I take great umbrage of somebody coming in here and trying to disparage my knowledge and my reputation when he is still...
When you get up and you yell in court, it never works. Never, never, never.
behind the ears.
Mr. Fleck.
I've been doing this a whole lot more
And the judge, you see her roll her eyes, she's not listening to him.
than he's been
Mr. Fleck, have a seat.
on this planet.
Okay, have a seat. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to recess until 1 o'clock. We'll see you back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Judge, I'll be here. I can't be here at 1.
You need to be here. You're ordered here to be at 1 o'clock.
Well, I'm supposed to have lunch with my mom in 1 minute.
Bring your mom over
you
here.
want me to call my mom and tell her?
I'm supposed to have lunch with my mommy in 1 minute. I would never in a million years say that to a judge. Judge, I'm supposed to be here at 1? Guess what? I'll be here at 1. In fact, I'll be here at 1:45.
Now, stand her up for lunch because of Mr. McAllister.
You tell her you have to work. You want to make it 12, you can make it 1:30, but the court is going to work. I'm recessing until.
You're gonna make me stand up my own mother, my 83-year-old mother, who's waiting at a restaurant for me to show up.
You know what?
Now he's dangerously close to being found in criminal contempt, or at least contempt with this judge in her courtroom.
Because I think it's important for Mr. McAllister to get this matter resolved.
Well, if he wanted to get it resolved, he had 9 opportunities to do so.
I understand that. We'll see you back at 1 o'clock.
You know, for the record, I think this is.
Mr. Fleck, we'll start when you are back here, so enjoy your lunch with your mother.
I think this is bullshit. A lot of judges would take him into custody right then and there when he uses that kind of language in court.
Lunch with Mom? They're back in court.
We're still on the record. There's been a motion for contempt. Mr. Fleck, did you want to make a statement?
I do, Judge. I'd like to apologize for my outburst at 12:15. I think I was being needled by counsel.
Okay, that's called a fake apology. I like to apologize because it was the other side that caused me to be a prick.
Incessantly, and the very thought of me standing up my mother.
Let me stop you right there. If you're going to make an apology, I don't need it. You don't need to talk about anybody else's behavior but your own.
I would apologize for my behavior, my outburst. The thought of my mother being stood up for
He's really hung up on his mommy. He's a mama's boy.
lunch. I have no way to get a hold of her. She does not have a cell phone. Was more than I could stand. And I reacted to that situation poorly, and I would ask the court's forgiveness, deeply apologetic for my outburst.
Because of his outburst, Bob Fleck is fired from the...
This has been Bruce Rivers reacting to Court Cam 4 biggest outbursts. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Let's blow this thing up.